Ladies and gentlemen, when your children roll their eyes at you, when they slam the door, when they walk away while you're still talking, when they speak words that slice through your heart like a blade, the first thing that rises in your chest is that old familiar flame called anger, that boiling in your spirit that says, they can't talk to me like that. That voice in your head that tells you to raise your voice louder, slam your authority harder, strike fear so they'll fall in line. But, oh, friend, let me tell you something timeless, something true. That anger is the fastest road to a broken connection, a hardened heart, for anger is the reaction of a wounded pride. But wisdom, sweet, humble, holy wisdom, is the response of a heart anchored in truth. And when you feel that fire surge within, that urge to prove you're in charge, to make them feel the weight of your role, when you stand at the edge of that moment with clenched fists and furrowed brow, you've come to a crossroads, a sacred place where you can choose between the easy path of reaction or the narrow road of response. For anger is easy, it is instant, it is loud, it is sharp, but wisdom is slow, it is quiet, it is strong, and it is eternal. And what your child needs in that moment is not your wrath, but your witness, not your fury, but your faith, not your volume, but your vision for who they are and who they can become. You see, when you react in anger, you're feeding the very storm you're trying to calm. You're adding fuel to the fire. You're turning a teachable moment into a battlefield. And let me tell you, nobody wins a war inside the home, for your child is not your enemy. Your child is not your opponent. They are your assignment. They are your calling. They are your reflection. And sometimes the mirror they hold up is fogged by their own confusion, their own pain, their own silent questions they don't know how to ask. And all your anger does is fog it even more until neither of you can see clearly. But oh, the power of restraint, the holy fire of self-control, the quiet strength of a parent who can breathe deep, who can look into disrespect and still speak with dignity, who can rise above the chaos and still be calm in the storm. That kind of wisdom shakes the very foundations of a child's rebellion, because when you don't match their fire with fire, when you answer softness with softness, you are not being weak. No, you are being wise. You are being strong. You're being like a tree planted by the water, unshaken by the winds of the moment. And wisdom, real wisdom, knows that your child's worst moment does not define their whole journey. Wisdom knows that today's disrespect may be tomorrow's regret if only you can keep the door open. Wisdom knows that anger may win the moment, but it will lose the relationship. And what good is it to have control but no connection? What good is it to raise obedient children who are afraid of your voice but far from your heart? Because the goal is not to dominate, the goal is to disciple, the goal is not to punish, but to parent with purpose. There will be times when you'll feel invisible, unappreciated, even betrayed by the very ones you have loved and sacrificed for. There will be nights when the silence between you and your child is heavier than words. But don't let that silence turn into a storm inside your soul. Don't let the confusion pull you into chaos, because your peace is not tied to their behavior. Your peace comes from a deeper place, a higher source, a well that never runs dry. And when you respond from that place, when you speak from that stillness, something begins to shift in the spiritual atmosphere of your home. You are not just raising a child, you are raising a future mother, a future father, a future leader, and how you respond today will echo in their decisions tomorrow. So if you want them to know how to stand in the face of disrespect, teach them by showing them what it looks like to stand firm without striking back. Show them how to lead with love, how to speak with grace, how to hold power with gentleness, because they will not remember every word you said, but they will never forget how you made them feel when they failed you. So the next time disrespect knocks at your door, the next time you feel the fire rise, remember, anger is a reaction, but wisdom is a response. And the difference between the two could be the difference between losing your child in the moment or winning their heart for a lifetime. Because one builds walls and the other builds bridges, and my friend, it's not too late to choose the better. When your child raises their voice, when they cut you off mid-sentence, when they roll their eyes as if your words are dust in the wind, when they treat your authority as optional and your presence as a background noise to their world, there is a temptation, a deep and fiery urge to demand what you have not demonstrated, to expect what you have not embodied, to call for respect with your mouth while your life echoes something else. But hear me when I say you cannot harvest in your children what you have not planted in your own life. Because respect is not taught first with rules, it is taught with example. It is not built with lectures, it is built with moments, quiet, consistent, real-life moments where you show them how to speak with honor, even when you're frustrated, how to stay patient when you're tired, how to listen even when you'd rather walk away, and that, dear friend, is the root from which respect grows. Because a child who sees their parent belittle others, mock their spouse, shout over strangers, curse in traffic, dismiss the waiter, speak harshly to the teacher, slam doors when angry, gossip on the phone, they will learn more from those actions than from any speech about. Because the home is a stage and your life is the script, they're rehearsing in secret. And if they never see you say a please or a thank you, if they never watch you apologize when you're wrong, if they never hear you say, I understand, or tell me more, then how will they know what respect even looks like in the wild? And how can they walk a path they've never seen their guide take? You see, modeling respect isn't about being perfect. It's about being present, about being consistent, about being intentional enough to understand that every sigh, every shrug, every glance, every tone is a sermon being preached in your home, whether you know it or not. And if you want your child to stop slamming doors, ask yourself when you last shut your own with patience. If you want them to stop yelling, think about how you respond when things don't go your way. If you want them to respect boundaries, start by respecting theirs. Not by surrendering authority, but by showing them that respect is not a reward for good behavior. It's a way of being, a culture you create, a value you carry, a mirror you hold up with your life every single day. When they test that line, when they speak in ways that twist your soul, when they behave like they've never seen the example you set, don't panic. Don't rage, don't despair, because even when a seed lies dormant into the soil, that does not mean it's dead. And just because they haven't echoed your tone yet doesn't mean they haven't heard it, because children often listen with their hearts before they ever imitate with their mouths. And one day when life squeezes them, what you've poured in, good, noble, kind, and steady, will rise to the surface in ways you may never expect. So if you want to change the way your child speaks, start by watching your own tone. If you want them to value your opinion, start by listening to theirs, even when it sounds like noise or rebellion, even when it's tangled in confusion and wrapped in attitude. Because deep inside their voice is a cry, show me how to be, and you have been given the divine calling not just to correct their words, but to shape their spirit, not just to demand better behavior, but to demonstrate a better way, and that way must begin with you. Respect is not a position, it's a practice. And just because you're the parent doesn't mean respect is guaranteed, because titles may demand compliance, but only character earns trust. And when your children see that you respect others, and respect yourself and respect them even when they learn that respect is not about control. It's about honor, and honor is not something you can force. It's something you inspire, and inspiration doesn't come from shouting louder. It comes from living deeper, from embodying the values you hope to see in the ones you raise. And yes, you will mess up. Yes, there will be moments you speak too harshly, moments you interrupt, moments you are too tired to model anything except exhaustion. But when those moments come, don't hide them, own them. Because modeling respect means showing them what humility looks like, showing them how to say, I was wrong, showing them how to make it right. And those are the moments they will remember more than all your lectures. Those are the moments that will echo in their hearts when they grow up and face their own storms. So don't just teach respect, be respect, walk in it, wear it, breathe it, sow it into every corner of your home. Because what you model will multiply and elongate long after your words fade. Your children will carry your example like a compass in their soul. And they will respect, not because they were forced to, but because they were formed by something greater than fear. They were shaped by love, wrapped in strength, by patience clothed in truth. When your child slams the door, when they roll their eyes, when they talk back, when they lie or lash out or seem like they're drifting far from the one you raised, the temptation is to fix what you can see, to hammer down the behavior like it's a nail sticking out of a perfect frame. To focus on the words they say, the tone they use, the rules they break. But what if I told you that the behavior is just the echo, just the surface ripple of something deeper stirring in the waters beneath? Because behind every sharp word is a soft question. Behind every act of rebellion is a longing. Behind every wall they build is a fear they haven't found the words to speak. And your job is not just to silence the noise, it's to hear the cry beneath. And yes, you are called to correct. Yes, you are called to guide, to discipline, to draw boundaries and hold the line. But if you stop at the surface, if you only chase the behavior, if you only discipline the act without discerning the heart, You will win the argument but lose the connection. You will shape the outside while the inside stays untouched, and your child may learn how to behave in front of you, but never learn how to be whole within themselves, because behavior is a fruit and the heart is the root, and what good is it to prune the leaves while the root rots quietly in pain? You see, every child, yes, even the angry one, the disrespectful one, the closed-off one, wants to be seen, wants to be known, wants to be safe. And sometimes they test your love, not because they hate you, but because they're not sure they're still lovable when they're at their worst. And sometimes the pushback is not rebellion. It's a question, will you still come close when I push you? And sometimes the silence is not defiance. It's fear that if they speak the truth of what they're feeling, they'll be misunderstood, dismissed, or worse. Rejected. In those moments, the most powerful thing you can do is lean in instead of lash out. So when your child messes up, when they blow it big, when they do the thing you warned them about, when they speak in a way that wounds, yes, call it out. But don't stop there. Don't just say, oh, what you did was wrong. Go deeper and ask what's going on inside you. Because there's always a story behind the storm. There's always a wound behind the wall. And your job is not just to correct, but to connect. Not just to punish, but to pursue. Not just to discipline, but to draw near with holy curiosity and unconditional presence. And when you seek their heart, really seek it, you begin to see that what looks like anger might actually be anxiety. What feels like disrespect might be a desperate attempt for control in a world that feels too big. What sounds like apathy might actually be a quiet scream for help from a child who feels invisible. And when you begin to listen with your soul, not just your ears, you become a safe place instead of just an authority figure. And when a child feels safe, they start to open, they start to soften, they start to bring their true self into the light where love can actually reach. But you cannot seek their heart if you've already made up your mind about who they are. You cannot seek their heart if you're more concerned with how they make you look than with how they feel inside. You cannot seek their heart if you're more invested in compliance than in connection. Because the heart doesn't open to force. It opens to invitation, to empathy, to patience, to presence, and seeking the heart means being willing to slow down, to sit in the mess, to hear what's not being said, to hold space when the answers don't come quickly, and to love them through their lowest, not just lead them in their best. And sometimes, friend, you won't understand. Sometimes you'll ask the questions and hear nothing in return. Sometimes the heart you're seeking will stay hidden, guarded, stubborn. But don't stop seeking. Don't give up, because your pursuit itself is a message. Your presence is a sermon. Your consistency is the whisper that says, I still see you, and I'm still here. And in time, what's hidden will come to light, and what's broken can be healed. Not because you forced them to change, but because you love them enough to look beyond what they did and care deeply about why they did it. Yes, correct the behavior. Yes, hold the standard, but never forget to seek the soul beneath the action. Because when you seek the heart first, the behavior often follows. And even if it takes time, even if it's messy, even if the road is long and full of questions, when a child knows that your love digs deeper than their mistakes, when they know you're not just managing them, but truly knowing, that's when transformation begins. Not just of actions, but identity, not just of how they act, but of who they believe they are. And that is the kind of change that lasts a lifetime. When your child speaks with sarcasm, when they roll their eyes, when they lie eyes out, or say things you never thought you'd hear under your roof, when their attitude wounds you and their words dishonor you, and their silence feels like there is a moment, a holy moment, where you can choose to speak life or pour judgment, where you can either draw close or drive them further away, because condemnation shuts doors while communication opens windows. And what your child needs in that moment is not a courtroom with a judge and a sentence. They need a conversation with a parent and a safe space to be understood. And it's easy, oh so easy, to go straight into correction mode, to remind them of who's in charge, to speak in absolutes, to unload disappointment like thunder from a cloud, to say you always or you never or what's wrong with you without even realizing those words are arrows that pierce deeper than you know, because condemnation speaks to the failure, but communication reaches for the... And there is a mighty difference between saying you messed up and saying you are a mess. And one builds a bridge, but the other builds a prison, and the walls of that prison grow tall and silent and cold when a child no longer feels safe to bring their truth to the table. Because communication means you care more about understanding than being right, more about connection than control, about their heart than your pride. And when you sit down with a calm spirit, when you ask questions not to trap but to learn, when you speak not just to be heard but to truly hear, something sacred begins to unfold, because children, even the difficult ones, even the angry ones, want to be heard, want to be seen, want to know that their thoughts matter and their voice counts and their feelings are not foolish or forbidden. And communication gives them that dignity, even in discipline. And it's not weakness to speak gently. It's not surrender to lower your volume. It's not giving in to listen when you want to yell. No, it is strength under control. It is power guided by purpose. It is parenting with intention instead of reaction. And in those moments when your child is most out of line, they are often the most in need of grace, not because you excuse the wrong, but because you know that grace is the soil where true growth begins, and it is possible. Yes, entirely possible to speak the truth, to correct without condemning, to lead without lording, to discipline without destroying. Because when you condemn, you speak to their shame, but when you communicate, you speak to their soul. And the soul of a child is tender even when their tone is sharp, even when their posture is defiant, even when their eyes are full of fire. And the parent who can look past the flame and speak to the fear underneath will reach deeper than rules ever could, because your goal is not to control their behavior for a moment, but to shape their heart for a lifetime. And hearts are shaped not by fear, but by truth spoken in love and patience, in mercy and in unwavering commitment to relationship. And don't think for a second that your words don't linger, don't echo, don't build a world around them, because the words you choose become the voice they carry inside long after they leave your house. And if they grow up hearing "or impossible," you're a disappointment. "Oh, what's wrong with you?" They'll grow up believing those lies. But if they hear "help me understand," "oh, you are more than this mistake. I love you even now." And then even when they fall, even when they fail, they will rise with something inside that tells them, "I am still worthy of love. I am still seen. I am still welcome at the table." So yes, speak the hard truths. Yes, hold the standard. Yes, confront the wrong, but do it with the heart of a healer, not a prosecutor. Do it with eyes that search for restoration, not just resolution. Do it with a tone that tells them you are not the problem. You're a person with a problem. And I'm here to walk you through it, because that's what real communication does. It walks with, it doesn't push down. It invites into exile. And when your child knows that your voice won't shame them, even in their lowest moment, that's when the walls come down. That's when their ears open. And that's when the change begins. So don't raise your voice. Raise your vision. Don't point your finger. Open your arms. Don't label them. Above all, don't condemn. Communicate, because every time you choose conversation over condemnation, you give your child a chance to be more than what they've done. And you show them that love isn't just a feeling. It's a language, and it's one you're willing to speak no matter what. When the rules are broken, when the boundaries are ignored, when your child looks you in the face and does the very thing you told them not to do, there rises in you a fire, a heat in your chest, a thunder in your voice. And if you're not careful, you'll start to discipline not from love, but from pride, not from purpose, but from ego, not from wisdom, but from woundedness. And when it flows from ego, it becomes about revenge instead of restoration, about domination instead of direction, about winning the moment instead of shaping the heart. And though the child may obey out of fear, fear does not transform. It only teaches how to hide better next time. Because ego says, "How dare you speak to me that way?" But love says, "Oh, let's talk about what's going on inside you." Ego says, "You've embarrassed me." But love says, "I care more about your growth in my image." Ego punishes, silence the offense, but love disciplines to reveal the lesson. Ego is reactive, but love is redemptive. And if we are not watching our own hearts, we will turn the gift of discipline into a weapon instead of a tool. And we will forget that discipline, when done right, is not a breaking down. It's a building up, not a crushing. It's a calling forth, and our tone, our timing, our posture, our presence, they all preach a sermon louder than our words ever could. And sometimes we discipline not because the child needs correction, but because our pride needs to feel respected. And when our identity is tied to their obedience, then every act of defiance feels like a personal betrayal. Every mistake feels like an attack on our authority. Every argument becomes a courtroom where our ego demands a verdict. But parenting is not a performance, and your child is not your audience. They are your assignment. And love says, "I will discipline you because I love you too much to let you stay lost." While ego says, "I will punish you so you remember who's in charge." And that difference, that one invisible line, can be the difference between raising a child who fears you and a child who trusts you. Because true discipline is not about asserting power. It's about teaching responsibility, showing who's boss. It's about showing what's right. It's not about creating distance. It's about inviting reflection. And when you discipline with love, you're not just reacting to what they did. You're investing in who they're becoming. And that kind of discipline doesn't yell to be heard. It speaks to be received, doesn't demand apology. It invites understanding, and it doesn't leave a child ashamed. It leaves them wiser, stronger, safer, more secure in the love that both corrects and protects. And love-based discipline may take longer, may not have the sharp edge of ego's quick strike, may not result in immediate silence or submission, but it bears fruit that lasts because love does the hard work of connection before action. Love says, let me sit with you before I scold you. Love says to let me explain why this matters, not just enforce that it does. And when a child feels that your correction comes from care, not from control, they may resist in the moment, but they will remember in the future. They will carry that voice inside them when no one is watching. They will rise in the direction of the truth you showed them, not just the power you used against them. An ego wants to win the moment, but love wants to win the heart. And that means sometimes swallowing your pride, sometimes walking away for a minute to cool down, sometimes admitting I handled that wrong, and yes, sometimes apologizing after disciplining out of ego instead of love. Because even in your failure, you're modeling something sacred, humility, repair, restoration. And when your children see that even the one in authority can repent, they learn that discipline is not a place of fear. It's a place of learning, and they stop seeing mistakes as things to and start seeing them as chances to grow. So discipline with boldness, discipline with clarity, discipline with consistency. But do not discipline from your bruised pride, from your offended self, from your need to control, because that is not strength. It is insecurity wearing a mask, and your child will feel it. They will absorb it, and they will one day pass it on. Unless you break that cycle now and choose a higher road, a road that costs more in the moment but gives more in the end, a road where love holds the reins and ego takes the back seat. Where discipline doesn't just shape behavior, it shapes character, and character is what holds steady long after your voice is gone. So let your correction come not from a place of offense, but a place of mission, not from the bruised pride of a parent, but from the deep burning love of a shepherd, because your goal is not to control the sheep. It's to lead them home, and that kind of discipline will be firm, but never cruel. Strong, but never harsh, unflinching in standard, but unshakable in compassion. And when your children look back, they may not remember every rule or every consequence, but they will remember that when you corrected them, they still felt loved, still felt seen, still felt safe. And that memory will become the foundation they build their future on. When the weight of parenting presses down like a storm that won't pass, when the answers feel distant, and your strength runs low, and you wonder if anything you're saying is even reaching them, when the noise of defiance drowns out the whisper of progress, and it seems like the harder you try, the further they pull away, this is where you must learn to do what only love empowered by grace can do. You must pray, you must reflect, and you must persevere, because prayer is where you regain your vision. Reflection is where you regain your direction. And perseverance is where you refuse to let go even when everything in you wants to quit. And parenting in these moments isn't about perfect words or flawless techniques. It's about holding fast to hope when the fruit has not yet appeared. Because prayer is not your last resort, it is your first weapon, your steady place, your secret wellspring. And when you fall on your knees, not just in desperation, but in trust, when you lift that child before the throne. Not trying to fix them, but to release them into hands far more capable than yours, you begin to parent from peace instead of panic, from faith instead of frustration, and your prayers are not just whispers in the space. They are acts of war in the spirit, declarations of love, shields of protection, seeds of transformation planted in the unseen places where God moves in ways you cannot predict. And though you may not see immediate change, never doubt that every whispered prayer shapes the soul of your child's heart. And then the quiet that follows when the shouting is done and the silence is loud, you must reflect. Not just on what they did, but on what you did. Not just on how they behaved, but on how you responded. Because reflection is the sacred act of realignment. The mirror that keeps your motives pure and your heart soft. And if you are too busy correcting to be corrected, too focused on their growth to acknowledge your own blind spots, then your leadership will lose its power. But when you reflect with humility, with open hands and an open heart, you begin to see where fear disguised itself as control. where exhaustion disguised itself as anger, where pride disguised itself as discipline. And in that clarity, you find the courage to parent better today than you did yesterday. And oh, how you must persevere, because this journey will not always give you the reward you expected, at least not right away. And you may sow in tears for years before you reap in joy. And there will be seasons where your child pushes every limit, questions every truth, resists every effort. And in those times, it will feel easier to detach, to retreat, to harden your heart. But you must not, because love that lasts is love that endures. Love that keeps showing up, keeps reaching out, keeps standing firm even when the winds blow wild. And perseverance is not about perfection, about presence, about staying in the story when you'd rather close the book, about continuing the conversation when you feel unheard, about loving when it costs you more than you thought it would. And if you don't know what to say nothing and listen. And if you don't know what to do, just stay near. Your presence speaks louder than solutions, and your consistency writes a story your child will one day read back with awe, realizing that through every battle, every mistake, every slammed door and tear-stained night, you never walked away, you never stopped believing. And that kind of faithfulness is rare, it's holy, it's healing. And even if they don't thank you now, even if they don't see it yet, that kind of love never returns void. It echoes into their future in ways you cannot imagine. So yes, pray with tears, pray with grit. Pray when you're empty and pray when you're full, because prayer will keep your heart from growing hard, will keep your ego from taking over, will keep your eyes lifted when your head wants to hang low. Reflect again and again. In the quiet moments and the chaotic ones, asking yourself not of what did they do wrong, but of what am I being called to learn in this? And yes, persevere, not because it's easy, but because it's worth it, not because it always feels good, but because the harvest of love grown in long suffering will be sweeter than you can comprehend. And in the end, you won't measure success by how perfectly they followed the rules or how quickly they matured or how often they said thank you, but by how deeply they know they are loved, how securely they stand when life gets hard, how willingly they return to you even after wandering far. Because that kind of legacy is not built in a day or a discipline. It is built in the thousand unseen prayers, the quiet self-examinations, the unwavering commitment to persevere when it would have been easier to walk away, and one day when they rise and call you blessed. It will not be because you were flawless. It will be because you were faithful. And so keep praying, keep reflecting, keep persevering, because you are not just raising a child. You are writing a legacy. You are building a future. You are pouring into a soul that will one day rise with wings. And your faithfulness today is the foundation for their flight tomorrow.